Hi, I thought I would record a video now that I got my lights to successfully work, and with the remote as well. Okay, so as far as I understand it, in my trailer, by the way, this was really easy to take off. There's basically a little circle on there, and you rotate it. You see this little notch? There's a little notch, and you rotate it just like a quarter turn, and that little notch comes off, and then it exposes the screws that go in there, and then you can take off the screws, and then you can take this out, and don't pull too hard, but you can take this out. Now I did these cuts to measure the voltage, and I'm gonna tape them back with some electrical tape afterwards, but with a multimeter, very, very useful tool. Black in the COM, red in the voltage, and then we're measuring 12 volts, so in the 20, and you want, it's going to be really hard to do this, what you want to do, this one actually is labeled, mine is labeled positive and negative. It's not a big deal, because if you get the wrong one, I'll just have a negative. Anyway, I don't know that I can do it with one hand, but you're going to want to put the negative, right, the black lead on the negative at the same time that you do the red on the positive. And it should read, depending on your battery, if it's, fully charged or pretty charged, it should read 12 or 13 volts. And that means that there is voltage here. And then if you have a problem still with your lights, that means that there's something probably wrong with either the remote. You should always just start with that anyway. Start with the remote and change the batteries. But if there's not, or it could be the dimmer, which I'm going to zoom in on the last thing there. Here's the dimmer driver, that little box. It says dimmer on it, which could be replaced. I ended up checking the voltage in the dimmer too by nicking the wires. You can see there that I nicked those wires. And in my case, basically, there was no voltage, or 0.01 volts was the max I could ever get out of any of these. So then I knew it wasn't here. I was concerned it might be like in there where I can't reach, because I can't seem to pull all of these around. But it wasn't. It was, okay, so what happens is, at least in this trailer, is that these are all connected in that direction. And then all the way at the back, probably like right there, there's a pipe that obviously I can't get to, it's between the walls. And then that pipe ends up going, right, what you can't really see, but it ends up going all the way back there, right, all the way back there, and then all the way under the wheel well. And here is where it comes. Here is the super messy thing I just took apart. And in my case, this wasn't what I immediately found, because I was looking first in the wrong place. But you really want to look at any of these. This was a bundle with a bunch of electrical tape. And you really want to just look at anything that has that and open it very carefully. Like, you don't want to cut too much, so you accidentally nick wires and stuff. But look at what I found, and the reason for my those wires not working, which is that this blue had been disconnected because for whatever reason it had been split. You don't see it here because it's now, it had been, here it is. It had been attached here. I haven't even figured out what kind of thing this is. I mean, this feels like a heat shrink that is not, oh, look at that. It's like a really terrible heat shrink. I mean, this is very bad. Like, it's not, and it doesn't seem to have been even very well. It's very soft. Like the other heat shrink ones that I'm gonna end up using, I'll show you. They are also crimped. So they're not just heat shrink, they are crimped. And they have a metal connector here so that you end up sticking one end there. They're called butt end connectors, unfortunately named. So you put one on each end, and you crimp it with a special crimper that has to do with the correct gauge of wire. I'm going to show you here. The correct gauge of wire. And it's kind of a pain. This is the only one available at Home Depot when I went. And it's a little bit of a pain to do it, but at the end of the day, it like goes all the way and it crimps them tight. And then if you can actually leave them like that. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can leave them like that. And then this part stays kind of like that, but moisture can then get in or whatever. So then, but then of course they are more easy to remove. They're not actually entirely removable, but you want to seal this with ideally a hair dryer. That's the best way to do it. A high, you just like medium to high heat hair dryer slowly, and then this will shrink. That's called heat, the heat shrink part. And then it will be impervious to everything. And that's what should have been done here, but that's not what was done here. And so instead, you know, basically only one of the connections remains, and then the other one has been split. So now I'll have to put it back. Oops, you can hardly see it because it's like, there, hold on. There it is, this thing poking out. That goes all the way back, and it goes into the, you know, all up in the wall and then all the way up. And that's the one that feeds these. How did I find that? Trial and error, nicking. I have to now go around and close all the wires I nicked to measure to see where the voltage was dropping. And I realized that, so I measured first, oops, fall down. I measured first here. So I took out all the fuses. I did this, your fuses might be different. But I learned that my top fuse is the 12 volt plugs. I'm talking about the 15 amp fuses here. The second fuse is the driver lights. The third fuse is the passenger lights, as well as the porch lights, as well as the Truma furnace, which is not great because the Truma furnace and the passenger lights and porch lights are actually on different wires. How did I learn that? Because when I disconnected wires together in the back of the trailer, I saw what turned on and what turned off, but then they're in the same fuse, and honestly I can't really, it's very hard for me to get back there, so I'm just gonna leave them like that. But it's unfortunate, but it's good to know. Anyway, the fourth one is the fan, and how you find out is literally you just are looking around for things that turn off when you remove these with a little tool, which I don't have handy, but you want to use a little tool to do that. I also learned that I have no idea what these other fuses are for. These are 25 amps. I have no idea what they're for. Maybe the air conditioner. Maybe I don't know. But anyway, so that's basically it. If you have these lights not working, but if basically you may not have a gooseneck either here or at the end. There were, these were options. It's very good to, in my case, it was very helpful to have the gooseneck because I could see that this was off and this was off originally. And so that meant, I need to use the remote. So that meant that there was something wrong with the whole electrical here. If you don't have a gooseneck and you can't figure that out, then the only way to figure it out is essentially to take one out, or multiple ones out as I did, and just check the voltage. And it's not a big deal. Don't get scared. You can't really shock yourself. Don't try to, put these things together with each other because then you will blow the fuse. So instead, again, black in the COM, red in the voltage, not the one with the A, the one with the V. And then you select 20V, and then you use the leads. I can't show you because I can't hold the thing. So, okay. I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to go to the back and show you something. Okay, now we're at the back of the trailer. Again, as you can see, I'll show you the dimmer. LED dimmer. So that could break. I wasn't getting any voltage here. I wasn't getting any voltage here. I had nicked these. So I knew it just had to be somewhere else. And this somewhere else was in here. Well, it was back there at the very end, but actually initially neither my fan nor any of my lights were working, although the 12 volt plugs were working. But this is the same wire from up there. I'm going to try to pull it back. Well, I'll just show you part of it here. But see, you can see this stuff. And there used to be a harness that was holding all these things together. I have one piece of it here. I sent pictures. It was, there were two of these attached to each other, but the wires had literally just corroded out and just poked out. So much so that I didn't even know they had ever been in there to begin with because I didn't really know what I was looking at. And all I could see was just the colored sheaths, and they were perfectly fine. And I thought that they had been cut, but really they hadn't. Just the copper part had totally just destroyed itself there. And so it looked like a perfectly cut wire. So that threw me for a loop. But at the end of the day, all I wanted to do was put color to color, unite them again with the heat shrinks. That's what I did. I'm not done with that, but that's what I'll be doing. I first put them in just temporarily with one of these, just to, make sure that they worked and they were screwed them in basically. Like you rotate the wires together after you strip them with a proper stripper, and then you rotate this in to cap it. That's not, I think that will work for a while, but like it's not ideal. So I'll be doing the heat shrink now that I've tested that everything is working fine, and that these lights are working. Oh, you can't even see. And the porch light, which I actually thought was like broken because of some LED, or some light water situation. Nope, it's not that. It's just the battery. I'm sorry, it's just the cables that were all messed up. So yeah, get a multimeter. They're like $10. And just test things out. My fan is also working. That was like something that wasn't working, but you'll hear in a second the green beep of death, which I've had before, and I changed the motherboard to fix it. There we go. I was going to do it 9 times. I apologize. I changed the motherboard to fix it. Tons of videos on YouTube about that. It was helpful for maybe a year and a half. Now I'm going to swap out the fan altogether. Still a max fan because it kind of seems like the only really good option. But I think that was number 8, 9, one more, and then probably okay. But it's definitely got voltage. So there we go. Oh, actually, one last thing is that you can check whether different fuses, that's what I meant to say earlier, different fuses are getting voltage by putting your negative terminal, your black lead on the negative battery, and you can find out the negative battery yours will look different, of course, but a black cable, and then there's a red cable down there. So like this is a negative terminal. You probably need some help. I can't do it with one hand. But anyway, holding one here, and while you're holding it there, then you hold to check that there's current flowing through this. You stick that into the essentially what you're looking for is these little metal things, which is what that's attached to. So you stick it to that. And there you can see if there was voltage. And so I saw that there was voltage for the one that is the fuse of these. So I knew the problem wasn't here. I had already checked the fuses. That's another thing to check, obviously. I had already taken them out, checked that the little thing in between them wasn't broken, right? And so I knew it wasn't that. But I thought it could be behind them somehow. But it wasn't. So again, it was in the cable. So, it's just troubleshooting. You might get lucky and the first thing you look at is the thing that is broken. Or you might, and in my case, it was in a way. The first thing I did was fix that totally corroded white plastic part and put those wires together. And I put them wires together and everything worked except for these. That's because there was a second thing to find, which was the broken blue cable there. Yeah. So, in a way, it's kind of fun, actually, and empowering, and I highly recommend it. And now the annoying part is to put everything back and clean it all up. All right. Hope this is helpful.